Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. Tomorrow is July the 4th, Independence Day. I don't know if you remember these very old episodes from The Simpsons, but there was this one episode where they have this scene where this dude is saying, celebrate the independence of your nation by blowing up a small part of it, right? And we're not going to do that today, but we will celebrate the independence of our nation by learning how to pay off debt using velocity banking. In fact, if I had the skill to do graphical design, I'd probably take this off and put an Excel spreadsheet in his hands. But let's go ahead and review velocity banking. So it's a super secret study group that only a few members are part of, if you're in the club, wink, wink, to study velocity banking on Independence Day. And what is velocity banking? All it is a debt payoff strategy using a line of credit as your main tool, right? So there's only two steps to doing velocity banking. Number one is your budget, right? So you have your income, you have your expenses, and then you have your leftover savings, and then you do an expense breakdown, right? So in its expense breakdown, it's important to list every single debt that you have, right? Because the more debt that you pay off, the more your cash flow increases. And then we have our general non-debt expenses, right? And we always assume that this number is always constant. We always have to pay for food, gas, insurance, but what we're going to focus on is paying off our debt. The more debt we pay off, the more cash flow you get, and it's like a rolling snowball effect, okay? So number one is our budget, and then number two is a line of credit. We need a line of credit as our main operating account. So all a line of credit is a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again, right? So a credit card's a line of credit, a personal line of credit is a line of credit, a home equity line of credit is a line of credit. Hint, hint, if the tool has the name line of credit, it's definitely a line of credit, although a credit card even though it doesn't have the term line of credit in the name, it's still a type of line of credit, right? Okay, so let's assume we're making good money, right? $7,000 a month, which is pretty good money. But we got a lot of expenses: two credit cards, an auto loan, two student loans, and a $300,000 mortgage. And our debt is always going to be proportional to our income, usually, right? The only exceptions I really find to this is certain places, real estate is really expensive, and somehow people are able to spend 75% of their income on a mortgage, and I think they got three families crammed in there like Hawaii. I think that's how it works, but we're just going to assume that our debt is proportional to our income, and we also have access to a, let's say, $50,000 home equity line of credit. So a $50,000 home equity line of credit is like a $50,000 credit card, but it's based on the value of your home. You can use it to pay anything, but and even better than a credit card in one aspect is that you can use it um, to pay other credit cards and pay other loans, right? So a credit card can't not be used to pay other credit cards or loans unless you're doing kind of like either cash advances or using plastique.com or plastic.com or or balance transfers, right? So you kind of have to pay a little bit of fees to use that credit card, which is why you want to get as much credit as possible. And the secret to getting much credit as possible is always get it before you need it, right? And this is why I have $279,000 in lines of credit. If you give me a couple of months, I'll probably report back that I have over 500,000. We're going to see how this goes. But right now, I have over $279,000 in lines of credit, and that's because I know what banks are looking for and who they want to lend to. And the secret, their so-called secret, that's kind of in the open, but they don't readily admit, is that they like to lend to people who don't need their money, right? Anytime you go to a bank and say, "Hey, I need money," they're gonna laugh you out of there, right? So get it before you ever need it, and that's how I got $279,000 in lines of credit. I think I have like 18 credit cards, two personal lines of credit, and one home equity line of credit, and I got a couple of business credit cards thrown in there in the credit card mix. Okay, so again, our main operating account is this $50,000 home equity line of credit and 10% interest rate, right? So normally credit cards are usually from 18 to 30% interest rate. And so why 10? It's because you're giving collateral, right? Your home equity is your collateral, and anytime you put some skin in the game, lenders will give you better terms and rates, right? That's just how lending works, and people think that you should never give any collateral, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it's up to you. I'm okay with offering my home equity as collateral to use it in the form of a what would essentially be like a credit card. Okay, so we did just two steps. We have a budget, we have a line of credit, and our goal is to pay off $384,000 of debt, right? And so we're going to assume that this is all fresh debt, meaning like we haven't even made the first payment yet, although that's kind of unrealistic. But like we bought a brand new car, we just graduated college, we got a brand new home. That's kind of unrealistic, to be honest, but we'll just assume that we're starting fresh. Um, and also, we're going to assume that we're not making more money, although I do love the idea of making more money, but it's just we want to show how effective this strategy can be if you just rearrange your finances and do it different from the average American way, right? And so now what we're going to do is second assumption is we're going to do the opposite of what Dave Ramsey says, which is he says first baby step, save up to $1,000 in your beginner emergency fund. He calls you a beginner for doing this, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to say, hey, I'm not a beginner. I'm going to be a little bit not noobish. I'm not going to be a beginner because I'm going to do velocity banking and have zero savings. Most important part of this is the zero savings, and we're using a line of credit to help us not have any savings, right? So we have our expenses here, and let's go ahead and copy some of these numbers, right? And we're going to have something called cash flow, which looks exactly like savings in the very beginning. It's just income minus expenses. And right now we see this cash flow numbers as $1,100, similar as our savings. But we're going to increase this number once we use our home equity line of credit as our main operating account, right? So that's the difference between the average American and the velocity banker, is that the average American uses their line of credit, or not, I'm sorry, uses their checking account as their main operating account, whereas the velocity banker uses the line of credit as their main operating account, right? So let's just all right. So let's go ahead and re-engineer our finances and move our debt. So we have two credit cards, and you might be wondering, like, I have all this debt, right? Like, I have all of this debt. So some people might freak out. They have one, two, three, four, five, six debts and freak out. I have had people send me their budgets and spreadsheets unsolicited, and they give me like 10 to 15 debts, and I'm like, whoa, like you have a lot of debt, right? Now, how do we know which debts to attack first, right? I like using something called the cash flow index because it's a very simple formula where you take the balance of the loan, and I'll just type in cash flow index right here, cash flow index, where you take the balance of the loan or the credit card or the debt and you divide by the monthly payment. So let's just go ahead and do this, 10,000 divided by the monthly payment, so 350, and then this one is 12,000 divided by 390, and then this one is 22,000 divided by 415.17. This one is 15,000 divided by 170.32, and then this one is 25,000 divided by 256.16. And then this one is 300,000 divided by 1798.65. And let's go ahead and format this a little bit better. So let's go ahead and format the cells. Number, yes. Okay, I think we got it. All right. So now, what does this cash flow index number mean? I think of it as like a ranking system. So the lower the number, that's the one you want to pay off first, right? And what the number has a little bit of significance, or actually has a lot of significance. But basically, um, the lower the number, the more cash flow you get for paying off that loan. So, for example, would you pay $10,000 to get $350 back, or would you pay $22,000 to get $415 back, right? So obviously we pay this one off first because we get more bang for our buck, and that's the whole idea of the cash flow index, is the amount that we pay off and the amount of cash flow that we get back. Okay, so let's just do this. So since these numbers are really low, we could just move these credit cards into that home equity line of credit. Again, we're just doing a simple debt transfer, right? So this is going to be 22 whoopsie. Let me do this. Whoopsie. 22,000, right? Where did we get the 22,000? We got it from these two credit cards. And just by doing a simple debt transfer, this goes to zero, this goes to zero, right? And now our cash flow went from $1,100 to $1,800 in an instant in day one without doing anything, right? And so what we're going to do is, again, the actual velocity banking strategy is you put your entire paycheck into the line of credit and then you take your expenses out, right? And so after every single month, the balance is going to go down about $1,800, and then you add a little bit of interest there, right? So let's go ahead and do that. And I2 plus 1, and these are some formulas that you should be able to do yourself. So to get the next month's balance, it's the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus, okay, this cash flow number right here, 1850.7, right? And why is it red? Did I screw up? Let me make it not red. Okay, so now in order to get the interest that calculates after every single month, you need to get the average daily balance. So you could just estimate it right here with this average function here, multiply it by zero point 0.1, which is 10%. That's the interest rate of the home equity line of credit, and then divide by 12 because you want to get the monthly interest, right? And all you got to do now, you got the three formulas. This is the magic trick: copy and then paste these formulas, right? And so now you see, if you scroll all the way down, okay, well, this is paid off in about a year, a little bit over a year. So let's go ahead and highlight that. And now we got our milestone of it's paid off in 13 months. So 13 months. Oh, I'm sorry, not 14 months. 13 months, 22K of debt, 22,000, right? So now, after we pay off debt, what we have to do is recalculate the loan balances at this time. So in my experience, right, like the ranking still applies, although the cash flow index may decrease. And with a loan, it's always going to decrease because loan payments are fixed, but the statement balance will go down. So by definition, as you keep making payments, the cash flow index will go down. Whereas with credit cards, regardless of where you're at, because the payment is variable, the cash flow index usually tends to stay the same throughout the life of a credit card. So if that doesn't make sense, just completely ignore what I said. All right, so now we paid this off, and then let's go ahead and figure out what the balance of this auto loan is. After 13 months, we gotta just go to our amortization calculator. 22,000 is the loan amount. We'll just assume it's 5 years. And what is the interest rate that we've written? 5%. Okay. And then, right, so 5%. And then where are we going? I don't know. Oh, yeah, it's 13 months. All right, 13 months. So now it's 17 grand. Okay. So 17 grand. That's the current balance of the loan. And so what we got to do is figure out the new cash flow index. What is that? 42. And if you ever never heard of the cash flow index, it's basically look it up on Google. There's a better explanation of how I'm explaining it, but if this is anything under 50, you should pay off, or it's worth paying off, right? So what we're going to do is just move this, what's it called? 17 grand into our line of credit, right? So let's move this 17 grand right here. Okay. And then what happens to our cash flow simply by transferring this debt? Well, this auto loan payment goes to zero, and now our cash flow is about $2,265, right? Amazing, $2,265.87. So now what we got to do is the subsequent months after we've done that debt transfer. Again, we're just transferring debt. We basically replace our cash flow or increase it to $2,265 a month. And we have to just keep going with the formula. All right. And we see that in 21 months, right? 21 months, that car loan was paid off. So simple. And I'm just copying that phrase from the channel, YouTube channel, pitch meetings, easy, barely inconvenience, right? See how easy that was? So we just transfer debt, paycheck in, expenses out, and then after 21 months, right? So 21 months, we paid off 22 plus 22, that's 44K. All right, excellent. So now we can figure out the balances of the student loan and one and two. So I remember when I had student loans, I had like three of them, and they'll be like Pell Grant, federal grant, and some grant, one private or something. And to be honest, by when I graduated college, I knew absolutely nothing about how loans worked, and I was just scared to look at them. I was just so scared to take responsibility for my finances, and I lived at home, and you know it kind of is a regret that I just never learned about these things because I felt like I had to learn adulting the hard way just by falling flat in my face. And there's 3 years of my life, or maybe probably four, where I made 20 grand a year, and it was one of the hardest years of my life. But it kind of forced me to learn all this. All right, so 15 grand, 6.5, and then let's go ahead and put in these numbers. So 10 years at 6.5. And for whatever reason, I thought student loans were 5 years, but they're 10 years on average, at least the ones I looked at, because I decided to go into the Navient or Sally Mae website. And I don't know if you know who Navient or Sally Mae is. I think they're the biggest student loan servicer in the US. The first thing went by Sally Mae, and then they got rebranded to Navient. All right. So 15,000, 6.5%, right? 50,000, 6.5% at 21 months. All right, so 21 months. What is the balance of this? Okay, it's 13 grand. All right, so 13 grand. And let's take a look at what our new cash flow index is. All right, so let's go here. 76, not under 50, but it still might be worth paying off because the balance is still relatively low. But even if we do pay it off, we're only getting $170 back, right? But let's just go ahead and move it to that line of credit anyways, make our lives simple and easy. And I'm going to just add this balance right here. Okay. And then so what do we got to do now? Since we moved that 13 grand balance, now this becomes zero, right? And so what's our new cash flow cash flow? It's almost $2,500 a month, so 2436.19, right? So let's go ahead and do this right here. So this is minus 2436.19, I think. Is it 91 or 19? 19, okay. So now we just got to copy that, and then let's see how long it takes to pay it off. And so in 27 months, now we're good. All right, so 27 months. So 6 months to pay off this one, 27 months. Um, so that'll be 15 plus 44, which is 59K, right? And then now we got to figure out what the balance of this loan is after 27 months. So 25,000, 25 at 5%. All right. And so 25,000 at 5% and at 27 months. And so it's 20 grand. 20 grand. And let's calculate the cash flow index. All right. So again, not that great because you want to usually be low, but I think because we have enough cash flow, it's not going to matter. And again, if you really, in my opinion, if you really wanted to make this as efficient as possible, you probably do something called chunky, which we're definitely going to do on the mortgage. But I don't think it's really that necessary in the student loan. You might probably save a couple $100 probably if you do the chunking method. If you don't know what it is, it's just incrementally moving pieces of loan to the line of credit rather than the whole entire loan. And that's because the loans usually have lower interest rates than the line of credit. And so the only like you have to consider when you move that loan to the line of credit how much cash flow are you getting back. So if it's not that much, then it's probably not going to be worth it. But we'll go ahead and take a look and move this 20 grand into that line of credit. All right, so let's just move it here, this 20 grand. All right, and so now, what's our cash flow number now? So this is paid off. So our cash flow is now almost $3,000, 2,701.35. 2701. So now, 2004.2. Yeah, so 20. Let me just make sure I have it correct. Yeah, 24. All right, so what's our new cash flow? It's 2701.35. 2701.35. All right. Let's go ahead and see this. Ooh, okay. So 35 months till that second student loan is paid off, right? So 35 months. Okay. And so 59 plus 25 is 84K, I think. Is it 74 or 84K? So 25, but yeah, it's 84K. All right, so now is the mortgage, right? And this is what I'm going to warn you, because a lot of people, you might hear from the internet, oh, just replace your mortgage with a line of credit. If usually it will probably save you money, but not as much money if you just do that chunking method I was talking about. Because what you have to consider is the amount of cash flow you get for paying off this loan. So if you're paying, let's say $300,000 and you get $1,700 back, you ain't saving as much money as if you just do the chunking method, where you're just moving maybe like $10,000 into a line of credit and just paying it off in little chunks. And we actually have a calculator for this that will determine your actual payoff. But let me just kind of show you this calculator right here, right? So this is from Renatus, and this is where I first originally learned velocity banking from. It's just a set of it's like communities, but also educational platform that they have. And so not only do they have classes on velocity banking, but they have classes on real estate investing, and that's where I learned how to get like a rental property at $100,000 discount. And full disclosure, I do get commission for enrolling people, right? Like, so, all right, let me go back here. So now it took us 35 months to pay off 84,000, and now what we have to do is find out the mortgage balance after 35 months. So again, $300,000 home or $300,000 loan. I'm sorry. So it's probably worth more than 300,000, or it is worth more than 300,000 because we got the home equity line of credit. All right, so 300,000, and after 35 months, what's the balance? It's 288,000. So take a look at this. If you've never seen a 6% interest rate, take a look at how much you're paying in total in interest. You're going to pay 347,000 just in interest, even though it's a $300,000 loan. So you're essentially paying double the house, almost double the house, after you pay off, pay the mortgage in 30 years. And most people usually never make extra payments to the loan, right? That's why it says optional, make extra payments. But we're making extra payments with the line of credit. For one, yes, we want to pay it off early, but two, we want to have control of our money, and three, we want to make it easy, right? Some people say, why don't you just put the money directly into the loan? And that's the default option. Why do you think nobody does that? Because it's like making a left turn, right? It's like making a left turn. So I don't know if you ever heard about how UPS does not make left turns. And let's just do a quick Google search. UPS does not make left turns, right? And right here, you could see from the Google AI, it says UPS drivers are instructed to avoid unnecessary left turns for safety and cost reasons, right? So you can read a lot of articles about this. You might you might think, oh, why wouldn't you make a left turn? Then you'll go directly into the street. But, people who have statistics and data know that if you're not likely to do something or something is unsafe for you, even if it's your default option, you need to look for alternatives. And this is an alternative to making extra payments directly while having the same effect and being able to give you control of your money, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and if it doesn't, then just plug in numbers to the Velocity Banking Calculator. And you might be wondering, how do I get this Velocity Banking Calculator? Well, enroll in Renatus, but I know most of you won't do that. So let me go ahead and put the current balance here, the interest rate, the payment amount, and then what's our income right now? So our income is $7,000, right? So $7,000. And then our living expenses is, what's our living expenses? It's everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So it's 2,500. All right. And then this chunk amount is just how much are we moving to the line of credit? So basically it's kind of like this. So if it's the chunk amount, it's like $10,000. Basically this is going to be 278,000, right? And then what we do is we add 10,000 here, 10,000, 10000, okay? Let me go ahead and highlight this. And then we just kind of keep paying off the line of credit with our paycheck. So it takes us about 4 months or so to pay off that chunk, right? So let me just go in here and you can see that from what it says right here, it takes about 5.7 years to pay off this mortgage. 5.7, not bad. Because you know how long it takes the average person, the average American, to pay off a 30-year mortgage? About 52 years because they refinance or sell their home out every 5 to 7, right? So basically, if we just stay in our home and know how to pay off our debts in the right order by maximizing our cash flow, and then attacking this mortgage last, right? Then we'll be able to win. Now, here's the thing that I always want to show you is that let's say, oh, you're going to replace this entire mortgage into that line of credit. So for some reason, you got a first lien HELOC, okay? I want you to take a look at this. Now, the years, I almost guarantee you will increase by a little bit, but this interest, I think you're going to pay a lot more. So let's go ahead and take a look, okay? So 5.7 years and 52K. Right, look at that. 7.8 years and 129. Okay? So, some of you don't have access to the calculator and you think the calculator is stupid and doesn't know that it's being replaced with the mortgage, but this calculator is really smart. Like you take a look at this amortization right here. Let me just show you what it's doing. So basically, again, oh wait, no, I'm sorry, not here. Let me go back here. All right. So where do we go? Okay. So as you can see here, it's saying, hey, you have a $288,000 loan balance, and then you transfer it into the line of credit, and it's calculating all that interest, right? So the guy who created this calculator, his name's Randall Cloud. He's actually the instructor for Renatus for Velocity Banking. And I learned from him, or when I took his class, that you really don't want to replace a mortgage with the line of credit if there's a substantial interest rate difference, right? It's much better to do the chunking method or the incremental payoff method, which for some reason, and I've never been able to figure out why it's so resistant to the interest rate, right? But you'll notice if I replace this entire thing, 288,000, I pay so much more in, even though I'm saving 166. If I just do $10,000 chunks, right? The interest is halved, and so and the time frame is even sped up more, right? And here's a crazy thing: if I do a 30% line of credit with $10,000 chunks, it's even better than replacing your line of credit with a first lien HELOC. That's 10%. What do I mean by that? Let's replace this line of credit with 30%. Okay, this is only going to go up a couple grand, I think. All right, 10 grand, right? So 30%. So if we did, okay, so let me go back here. So let's say it's 10% and 288,607.82. We replaced the whole thing, right? This is 129 grand we're paying interest, right? 7.8 years. But if we do a 30% credit card, we pay less than the 10% first lien HELOC. A lot of people don't know this because they're listening to the internet. Oh, just replace your mortgage with the first lien HELOC. No, we have to do the numbers, right? So we have to do the numbers if it makes sense. Sometimes we might pay a little bit more in that line of credit because again, it's not our money, it's the bank's money. They're charging us interest. But if it offers us an easy way to pay it off early, then I'm okay with it, right? Whereas, if we're making, we're doing precise budgeting and it's really complicated, I consider that to essentially be a UPS left turn, right? Like, I've gotten into a car accident making a left turn before, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't my fault. But, I don't know about you ever hear of traffic law, but the person who makes the left turn is always at fault. This is why I don't make like making left turns, and this is why I don't like to pay directly into my mortgage. Right? Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, then just completely ignore what I said. But let's remember here that we pay this in 5.8 years, or well, actually, let me do a 10% line of credit. 5.7 years. How much is 5.7? All right. So it's 35 months. 35 divided by 12 plus 5.7. Okay, so that's 8.62 years and let me just check here. 384K, because I told it up the tally, and we're debt free. Debt free, right? So remember how easy this was. And once we paid off this mortgage in 8 years, then we got this $4,500 that is essentially now going to go to our savings, and we can do whatever we want to do. Like if you don't have a mortgage payment, oh my goodness, sky's the limit because the rent is so high right now. Here's the thing, in many places in the country right now, it's actually worse to own a home than to rent. Like in Los Angeles, you'll pay like $8,000 a month on a mortgage when you can rent the same place $4,000. So those situations are both a lose-lose in a way. But if you bought the home at a right time and you learn to pay it off, oh my goodness, it's your life will be amazing because you have all this money that you won't even know what to do with it, right? Now you're going to have rich people problems. And don't you want rich people problems? And you know what I mean by that? It's like whenever you see a rich person with a lot of money, they always want to invest it because they're like, I'm losing to inflation. I'm putting my what's it called, money in a savings account and not doing anything with it, and I'm getting 1% interest or whatever, but inflation is eating me up. That's what they're thinking, right? So, end of our secret study group for Independence Day. So this is the end of the video. Again, we're not going to celebrate the independence of our nation by blowing up a small part of it, but we are going to celebrate it by blowing up some debt, which is what we did today in today's Velocity Banking video. Happy 4th of July. I'll probably come up with another video tomorrow. It might not be Velocity Banking, or I might crank out two videos, one about Velocity Banking and one about something that's been on my mind. But happy 4th of July. Have a great day, and we'll speak next time.